So I want to just go over a couple of things for update 30 that is not related to head harvest. These are just things that I wanted to. They're not necessarily exciting things, but just things that needed to get done. So first thing is the way that the dropped items are going to work now. That's going to change, and this is something that, as the project has gotten larger, we've had to rethink the way that the items are dropped on the ground. And we started this process with the vehicle trunks, and we're sort of extending this to the dropped items. And this is mainly for scaling the game in the future. We noticed that as we're adding more and more of the items to the game, scaling that in the future, if we're going to add more weapons, having to have like a unique asset for each one, and having to manage all that is we're sort of starting to feel the scaling problem there. And we're sort of just preparing for the future, right, by putting in this system right now. And to be perfectly upfront about this, there's also some like performance issues with the current system, and there's gonna be like pros and cons for this new system. So I'm not here to say, oh, it's gonna be so much better. I just want to be like honest with you guys, right? The pros of this system is, it's gonna be better for like server performance. So if someone decides to drop like 50 cans of fuel or something of that sort
separately.
It's not each individual can that you have to find.
right now it's treating each like item as a separate like actor that has to be like replicated over the network, and there's a cost to each one of these things. So which normally is fine, right? But again, it could potentially cause issues if there's like lots of players that are able to like do this, and it just having more of the actors in the world means that less players in a server, and not only less players, but less cool things that we can do in the other parts of the game as well, right? Another thing is, so there's that, and also there's some more opportunities in the future to like optimize once we have this in. Again, with the scaling of the content as well, and one thing that it might help with too is just making it a little easier to sort through like a lot of items. If you drop a stack of like 5 items right now on top of each other, it's kind of hard to tell what's going on. I know we have the Shift E system that kind of helps with that, but this way it'll be a lot easier for you to transfer like your items. And also the item drop on the ground is not always the easiest thing to see right now. It kind of gets the smaller items sometimes are lost in the grass, and it's just sort of this system we put in from the first day, and we never really touched it, and it was always a little bit like messy, right?
Yeah, on the art side, it also makes it like that we have to create more assets for just one item, and that takes time.
And things like the ammo, we're like running out of colors.
Yeah,
right.
It's already a problem for people that are colorblind. So the more than we can mitigate that.
Exactly. And the one thing that might be a bit of a regression, but this is something we can work on in the future if it's a problem, is it's a bit harder to see what item is immediately dropped, because it's sort of like the vehicle trunk. You have to walk up and use the stash that you've dropped first. So we recognize that this may change things, but this is something we can resolve with like UI if it becomes a problem moving forward. So I just want us to all try out this new system that is hopefully more scalable, and then we'll see how things work out in the future, right? So we'll be looking for your feedback on that. The other thing is, just want to go through a bunch of miscellaneous things for update 30. Besides that, as we talked about last time, shipping container color customization. One thing is all the mortar shell types can now be fired from the emplacement house. There's some changes. There's some small changes coming to resistance phase, but this is more like temporary type of changes. And it's not meant to be some new feature. It's more meant to be, okay, like right now, resistance phase is we had some plans for it. We didn't have time to implement a lot of the things that we wanted to. we had to like backtrack on some of the features, like the supply caches, and we sort of left it in a state that was less than ideal. And it's kind of very difficult to play, especially if you're like a new player and you happen to jump in during like resistance phase. I know a lot of players just kind of don't really pay attention to anything other than the wars, and that's fine. But the one thing that we also have to consider is if a new player jumps in, the game has to be functional. So one of the things we're going to do in the meantime, just to make sure it's functional, right, is just we're going to reset the world when resistance phase starts into a simpler type like layout that is more for like a practice war sort of a setup, and then we're going to leave that in place for now, and it's something we're going to come back to probably like next year to see what we're going to do with that whole part of the game. But for now, there's just much like bigger fish to fry, and we don't want that part of the game to be we want it to be at least functional for the new players, at least for now. And we recognize that it's an area that needs work, but we're probably going to come back to it at like a later point in time, maybe in a couple of months or so. Some of the quality of life, we talked about this last time, so I'm not really gonna go through them again. Like cranes buildable at Town Hall and Fort. Structure icons are now shown on the HUD for the minimap, and the stockpile tooltip shows all the items. There's more to this list, but that will come with release notes. Some changes that we're making based on some events in the last couple of wars. Source supplies can no longer be retrieved from a base if there's less than 100 in the stockpile. So this started off a long time ago. You couldn't ever retrieve it, right? And then players wanted the flexibility to like remove it, and we were concerned that there might be like reefing problems. And then there were, and then now we're sort of having like a compromise solution. Like, okay, you can remove some, but you can't remove them all, right?
So you have to at least leave the minimum.
Yes, yeah. And another thing is mines can't be placed at the border travel zone because, again, we've heard of some issues you had of, after you travel in, it's not exactly fair to travel into a region over a mine, right? So
yeah, it's there's so much that we do that is like based on what people can grieve.
Exactly, and frontier bases can now be built with hammers. So this is just a small nudge towards we'd like to see them used just a little bit more. Again, the main purpose of the frontier bases is to reduce the amount like border lockdown, so that players that are in the home regions are able to like deploy into a front and not have to do like a border travel after that.
Yep.
And this is still something fairly new. This is a new feature, and hopefully some of the spawn changes that we introduced in the fall date are good. We've heard a lot of like positive feedback about the new spawn system, about not having the old star base system, and frontier bases is just another part of that equation that we're having to tweak in the near future, right? So we'll be taking steps forward there.
And one thing that I really like about it. Oh yeah, sorry.
And that's it. There's going to be more balance changes. This is not it. There's going to be more in release notes, but I just want to highlight a few of these things.
Nice. Yeah, the one thing that I really like about these this quality of life things is actually the container colors.
Yeah, I was going to say the
such a
same
small
thing.
but like it helps so much, and it makes it way more appealing.
Being able to organize anything that way.
It's not something that every player is gonna like appreciate.
Yeah.
But if you're heavily playing Logi like certain players,
I mean, we've seen some screenshots this last war, and
some pretty crazy things.
And it might have been useful to be able to sort them.
Yeah.
Well, as we promised, today we're gonna talk a little bit about the Dead Harvest Deception, which is, for the people that don't know, new players or people that were not here last year, this is our Halloween event. It's a timed event, so that means that it's only going to be available for a very short period of time, and then it's going to go and it's going to be away for at least one more year. It works. It's kind of a treat not just for the player base as a thank you for playing the game and enjoying and being with us, but it's kind of a treat as well for the developers, because we take about a week off of the kind of like regular development and start working and work on the Dead Harvest. It's a way for us to decompress a little bit, work on something that is slightly different from the regular Foxhole kind of development. This time it was really nice. The studio, there were some people that were on vacation, so they were able to take time off. The people that were not on vacation, I would say about 2/3 or to half the team was actually working on Dead Harvest. Is that? Yeah, a little bit.
Well, half the team.
About half the team was working on Dead Harvest. It was really nice. We're really excited.
It's really fun because we don't, with this kind of stuff that we do in Foxhole, we don't really get to do a lot of like sort of supernatural stuff. So, and I know a lot of us are obviously really into that. So I think for us, this is just almost like we get to just like kind of let loose for a little bit.
Yeah.
And come up with all sorts of crazy ideas and, brainstorm just stuff that would never happen in Foxhole.
Yeah.
So
this my how can I say, how might have some like differences. It's not gonna be exactly the way you guys seen in the last year. So let's
That's putting it lightly, HB. I think it's
completely different.
It's actually completely different
Okay.
from
Well,
last
Except
year.
there are
Yeah,
zombies and you
yeah.
play as them.
let's see how it works. So first and foremost, this time what's gonna happen is that we're gonna have the Dead Harvest work during World Conquest. It's not gonna be a separate server. It's gonna be happening during World Conquest. So for the 2 weeks, besides dealing with wardens having to do with colonials and colonials having to do with the wardens, both of them would have to deal with basically a third faction, which is the zombies, and they have their own objective. And the objective of the zombies is to bring forth Endless Night. Endless Night is as the name implies, is a time in which time stops at midnight and it is dark forever. And how they do that is that they go around, the zombies go around the world corrupting. They have to destroy forts that already exist in the world, corrupting them. And as they do that, they might be able to bring forth Endless Night. So one of the main things that happens is that undeads at night, they receive a buff, and the biggest problem for wardens and colonials is that they can play World Conquest normally. If they don't want to participate on Dead Harvest, technically they can do it. The war continues on. But if Endless Night is achieved by the zombies, neither the wardens nor the colonials can win World Conquest. So it completely blocks both factions from winning until they deal with the zombie curse. This is the main thing. So in order for that to happen, if you are playing as a zombie, now you actually can evolve.
So let's, but something actually we didn't think about in these slides is before we get to the evolution of the undead, how do you become undead?
Well, hold on.
I don't think that's in the slide, is it?
It might not be in the slide, but I was going to talk about it. Anyway, so first and foremost, you become an undead, either by being killed by an undead, or you might have very bad luck, and the curse might afflict you when you die, just randomly. There are some factors that might influence the strength of the curse throughout the map, but you might be, if you die, there is a chance that you might come back as an undead. And if you are an undead and you kill somebody else, that person will be an undead as well. And the thing is that also the undead also becomes stronger the more they kill. So they start leveling up. They gain 1 level for every kill, and at levels 10 and level 20, they can evolve at different types. Be careful though, if you are an undead and you die, doesn't matter how, you will lose all your progression. So the evolutions go as follows. The basic undead is the one in the middle there. He's the cursed, just a regular cursed player. That's how you will start, either by getting killed by somebody else, or if you get randomly picked by the curse that is happening throughout the world, you might come as this guy. He's pretty slow, doesn't have much of in terms of speed and attack, but it gets progressively stronger. And keep in mind, usually one undead, it's not too hard for you to deal with. Things becomes a little bit dicier, of course, when you have several of them as a group. Now, things become really dicey.
The next one.
The next one. So if you get to if you reach level 10, if you kill one more person, get one more level, and instead of you going to level 11, you actually get a chance to go to the Avartak, which is a very fast undead. It starts a little bit faster than the basic undead, but as it gains more and more levels, it gets a little bit more attack damage, but it gets a lot of speed.
I will say this might be one of the faster things in the game.
It might be one of the faster things in the game, and it's pretty interesting to play
cool.
with. Players living players that are dealing with undead, they might have to cater their defenses to different kinds of undead. They will have to figure out ways to get to protect themselves of the different kinds of undead. Because if this Avartak kills their 21st victim, that's when they change into the Baylor spawn, which is a very strong undead. Now, here's the thing. This guy now, he's a brute. He's a unit. And he has a very high
He's
damage.
a big boy.
He's a big boy.
Actually, I think we called him Big Boy for a very long time.
Very long time, yeah. He has very high damage and very high health. And he gets even stronger and gets more defense as he evolves. The thing is, as you get stronger, you also get a little bit slower. So there is a little bit of a trade-off there. So this is how the undead is going to work. Of course, like in a previous Dead Harvest events, there are some things that you can do to protect yourself. First and foremost, there are some of the logistic towns, the one on the back line, they have a warded barrier now. So both Warden and Colonials, according to lore, have created these wards to protect themselves again on these particular areas in the map. Any zombie, any undead that attempts to spawn or that crosses this perimeter gets killed. Loses all their levels, and that's it. So if you are an undead player, be very, very careful.
So what this effectively means is there are towns, primarily what we call Village towns, that are effectively protected from the undead.
Yes.
So which is very, very important.
So it should be a safe haven for any player that is like, if a team is feeling like they have their backs against the wall, they can regroup there, do some logistics, prepare themselves, maybe wait out until daytime, because since nighttime they get stronger, wait out until daytime when they're a little bit weaker and venture forth again. Mm-hmm. And of course, one of the main things that you guys remember from last year, if you're here, is that the carved totems are back. So this little piece of item actually protects you from becoming an undead. If you have it equipped in your inventory, not just sitting there in your backpack, but actually equipped, you get protected. You don't get cursed neither by being killed or by the random chance when you die. It goes in the same slot as the radio, and it can be manufactured at a factory. So that's the main way that you have to protect yourselves. Just a quick notice. Another thing that you can do, if you do get turned and it's not something that they're interested on, be careful if you're a zombie, an undead. Sorry, is because if you do log out, you lose all your progression. So that's another thing to take into consideration as well. Well,
I guess that's
it.
That sounds like a cool event.
I hope you guys are excited about this, because the last thing that we have is how do you say that?
Centurion?
Centurion.
I think he was going to say something else, but it's fine.
Yeah.
The Clapturian?
The Clapturian.
So yes, only during this special event that is going on, the Dead Harvest Deception, only during this time, players will be able to play with this massive, and when I say massive, I mean like...
You're overhyping it.
No, I'm talking about size.
Oh,
It's just physically
It's
very large.
physically gigantic. It's
Right.
really, really big, right? It's a really big vehicle, and it's really fun. The main thing about the Centurion is that this is armored mech, and as you guys can see, he is not a small unit. It's really important against the undead, because when you shoot either of its weapons against an undead, it will cleanse the undead. So a player that was an undead before will get cleansed if they die for the Centurion, and you can find it around as a relic vehicle.
Unless you're crushed.
Huh?
If you're crushed under the feet of the...
Yes,
then
if you
won't go
die
back.
from the weapons
Yeah,
of the mech. I think I mentioned, but it might not have been clear. If I die from the weapons of the mech, you get cleansed. If you die, if you're a dead player and you die again, an undead player and you die again from any other means, you do not get cleansed. But
So you can step on enemies?
You can. Oh yeah, you can step on enemies. Oh yeah.
Excellent.
And this is a 5-player crew that can control this vehicle. So we have 2 independent heavy machine guns on each side, and each one of them is controlled by a player. We also have 1 frontal cannon that controls, again, the main cannon. The main cannon. It uses light tank ammo, and it also controls the direction in which the upper part of the mech faces. So at the beginning of the war, they might not have access to light tank ammo, but it might be useful to have somebody there on that position to actually aim
So
the hole.
okay.
The fourth person is the commander on top. It does not have any control, but actually particularly during the day, being able to see far with binoculars and call out things, it's really, really important. And of course, the last person is, for some reason I forgot to write down, is actually the driver. The driver controls the legs and the direction, that's as usual. Yeah, that's...
And I think the lore on the last screen, we can post that later because I think it's some.
Oh yeah, this is
Yeah, we
pretty
can post that
cool.
officially.
Okay, so I have a question for you, Matt. Why is it called that Harvest Deception this
Well, you'll just
year?
have to find the hidden lore pieces in the world, and that will tell you.
Oh,
I'm not going to give that away.
oh, fantastic! So yeah, guys, I'm really excited. I'm really excited about that Harvest. We worked on trying to bring you guys a fun event, very different from last year. We have no idea how it actually is going to play out. It's a sandbox game after all, so we don't know how the players are going to play with this. And that when the fact that it is in the middle of World Conquest, I think it's going to bring a new level of tactics that both undead players are going to use, and the wardens and the colonials. I think it's going to be really, really fun. I hope you guys have a fun time. Yeah, I'm just so excited. We worked pretty hard on it, and
Yeah, if you want to see those, just go back to those...